I didn't expect this curveball. You didn't expect this curveball, but is RJ Maryland really going to play wide receiver?
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. A lot of choices out there. Glad you decided to spend half an hour with me. I'm Grayson Singleton, and in case you're wondering if I do look exhausted right now, it is because I am exhausted right now. We are in the middle of the beginning of our high school sports season here at Oklahoma, and sometimes my job has me calling games at night 2 hours away from where I live. So had a little bit of a late night. That's the reason the podcast is coming out an hour later today. Thanks for sticking with me. As always, I'm going to bring it to y'all as we do every single day. This episode, by the way, is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Hey, coming up on the show today, we'll also get Rhett Lashley's thoughts on development in this East Texas A&M game. Again, you always got to take these games seriously, but why I am viewing this game as an NFL preseason game. The two can be true at the same time. Also, that running back room looked even more unsettled when we saw the depth chart come out yesterday. So all that coming up on the show today. But let's start with the first bonkers thing that was on the Too Deep when it was released yesterday ahead of East Texas A&M opening game. And that's RJ Maryland, not listed as a tight end, but listed as a wide receiver. RJ Maryland's 6'4", 240-pound self is listed as a wide receiver in the wide receiver 3. He's an or along with Ymir Knight, the transfer from James Madison. Here's my take on this. This can mean one of two things, I think. Well, it actually means two things. One of them more important than the other. However way you slice it. And you can make an argument that either point 1 or point 2 is more important. But I'm going to make the argument that point 2 is more important. Point number 1 is that dude's healthy. Straight up. I think that RJ Maryland is healthy. If they're going to list him not just as a starter at the position that he's been playing, but the wide receiver position where you got to run all sorts of routes cutting on that knee, I think his knee is more than just fine at this point in time, which would make sense given the timeline of the injury and what we know about ACLs. Usually a 9-month injury. We are about 10 months removed from RJ Maryland's injury. So no surprise that he's healthy, but that's what that signifies to me. Point number 2, and more importantly, was Matthew Hibner that good over the offseason to where they're just like, yeah, we can't keep this dude off the field. So we got to figure out something. And I think that is the best news ever. Because if you have not one big dude on the field, that can be a matchup problem, but 2, that can be a matchup problem. And they're going to be on the field a lot together, which should come to the surprise of absolutely no one. SMU's offense, they got something rolling. Because I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, but find me another college football team in recent memory that could run out 12 personnel and both of the tight ends be dynamic pass catchers. Both could be serviceable pass catchers. One could be a really good one, and one could be an excellent blocker. But find me a team, and maybe I'm overlooking an obvious one. Hit me up in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter, Gray_Singleton too, if one pops to mind immediately. But find me one team that had 2 dynamic pass-catching tight ends. This, to me, says more about Matthew Hibner here. Because Matthew Hibner earned the opportunity to show that, hey, I am just as quality of a tight end as RJ Maryland is. He earned the opportunity to show that when RJ went down last year. And by all accounts, and for all intents and purposes, I would say job well done over the latter portion of the season. And then into the offseason, he seems to seem like a guy that they're just not going to be able to keep off the field. So we got to do something. But when the New England Patriots, I think, were the first team to run out 2 tight ends that were as dynamic as wide receivers, because we always talk about tight ends being big wide receivers, but they're not always big wide receivers in the sense that they can't always run routes and have the depth of catch radius and the flexibility of wide receivers to really make those contested catches that may be a little bit off target, right? When the Patriots first ran that out, that was the first iteration of that when they did that with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez back circa 2012, 2013. Ever since then, that's taken off in the NFL, and you've seen teams like San Francisco, like Kansas City, try to have 2 tight ends who can make plays vertically down the field and run routes and stretch the field vertically. Not everybody's done it to great success, but the Patriots, I think, were the first one, at least in my lifetime, to have 2. Some of you guys are a little bit older than me. If it happened in the 80s or 90s, again, let me know in the comments below. But I think that's what SMU is going to have some iteration of. They're going to have 2 matchup problems because Matthew Hibner at 250 pounds and can move. RJ Maryland at 240 pounds and his 6'4" self that can move. That, by the way, is going to be split out wide. Who's stopping that? Tell me who's stopping that. Because you already have one that's going to command the attention of a safety or a bigger corner. And most teams only have one of those. I can't think of one team that's got 2 of them. I mean, how many safeties are going to be able to match up with RJ Maryland split out wide? The one that comes to mind is Caleb Downs, and there's only one of those dudes, and he plays for Ohio State, who last time I checked was not on SMU's schedule. But that's before we even get to the big kicker of all of this. And that's that RJ Maryland played wide receiver in high school. This ain't nothing new to him. You don't forget how to play wide receiver. You just don't. As a matter of fact, I'll bet when he was working out split out wide, whether he was in the slot or actually at the X or Z position, I bet he felt some semblance of familiarity. I bet he lined up out there and was like, ooh, this is good to be back. Personal anecdote here. I think those of you that played sports that crossed over different seasons will vibe with this one. So when I was in high school, I was a basketball player in high school. I was a point guard on my school team. When I went to AAU, we had 2 twins who were about 5'6", 5'7". So I slid over to the small forward 3-and-D type of role. Did well at both. But I was always a point guard. But with my AAU team, we had, dudes who were 5'7". Can't really play anywhere else. But then when I would go back to school ball and be running the offense again, it'd be like, oh, yep, I like this. This seems right. And I bet that's what RJ felt some level of working out back there at wide receiver. He didn't forget how to run those routes that he did at South Lake Carroll. I mean, you see him making plays one-on-one with DBs like a wide receiver last year. I think he's going to be more back in his element this year, even though he's now 240. And again, I will say this. Who is guarding a 6'4", 240-pound dude who can run? So this has a lot to say about RJ Maryland, has a lot to say about Matthew Hibner and his route running. What Hibner does so well is that he stretches the middle of the field vertically. And then in the run game, you got 2 big old dudes blocking DBs sometimes. SMU's offense is going to be fun this year. I think SMU's offense is going to be really, really fun if they are actually going to trot out RJ Maryland and Matthew Hibner primarily at the same time. Now, Maryland is listed as an or with Ymir Knight. I do need, for journalistic integrity purposes, to emphasize that. But if it does end up being RJ out there, oh, buddy, good luck to every single defense on SMU's schedule. Coming up next, let's hear from Rhett Lashley. Well, I will read you what we heard from Rhett Lashley because we don't have the press conference clips. But Rhett Lashley had an interesting take on this upcoming East Texas A&M game. We'll break it down on the other side. Keep it here on Locked On SMU. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify things that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. How good is that? Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. You can do it all, plus they got quick payouts, man. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, welcome back. Before we get into the content of our second segment, we have an important request for you. Locked On wants to hear from all of you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts, including this one, even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like and what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. And you can also help us out on this show. Go ahead and click that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, go over to the YouTube. Click that subscribe button, click the notification bell so you can get notified of whenever we release new content. Also, give me a follow on Twitter at Gray_Singleton2. Love to interact with all of you there. Okay. Rhett Lashley had some thoughts on this upcoming game to open up the season against East Texas A&M. And he had a lot to say on this. But a lot that I think I want to focus on when it comes to development. Here's what he had to say. Okay. On offense, for example. Actually, I'll start with the sentence before that. There's a lot of things still unsettled, particularly with our 2 and 3 deep kind of world. Okay, on offense, for example, I don't think you guys are going to be shocked by the 2 deep that comes out, but then you're going to look at who's behind the starters. It's freshman after newcomer, you know. Same thing on defense. We have a lot of new faces playing too in the starting role on defense. And so we just got to see how the guys respond in that situation. The thing I want to focus on here is it's freshman after newcomer. And that's what's going to translate between offense and defense. And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm trying to think, what do I want to see in the East Texas A&M game in conjunction with my thought that we're going to view this as a preseason game, even though it actually counts toward being 1-0 or 0-1 on the season. Ty Hawkins, the freshman quarterback from IMG Academy down there in Florida, is listed as the number 2 on the 2 deep. Now, that's ahead of Charlie Pfizer. One of the other quarterbacks is not quite ready yet. As his name just totally blanks right now. let's give me, it's one of them quarterbacks with the three names and just completely slipping my mind at the moment. Tyler Van Dyke. Almost called him Tyler Van Buren or something like that. Tyler Van Dyke. He's injured right now. He's not ready for action. So Ty Hawkins is going to be the number 2 quarterback, at least for this week. Anybody else want to see Ty Hawkins play? When you view this game through the vein of a preseason game, and when you view it through development of freshmen and development and synergy with newcomers, I go to Ty Hawkins. Because if all things go to plan, Kevin Jennings and the ones are not playing, or at least not all playing, past the first drive of the third quarter. SMU is like a 40-something point favorite. They should win this game and it be handily in tow by halftime. And maybe you run the starters out one more time in the second half. But after that, no. I'm interested to see what Ty Hawkins looks like. I want to see what he looks like on a collegiate field with collegiate coaching, with collegiate players. Can he throw a good ball for college football? What kind of quick decisions is he making? Is he processing his reads and processing the post-snap quickly? I want to see that. I'm interested in seeing Ty Hawkins because it's a dude with an electric arm and tons of athletic ability. Now, also, there has to be a plan with Ty Hawkins and how you deploy him. Do you put him out here and it count as one game toward potentially burning a red shirt? You do have to weigh all of those factors. Then again, how many games is Ty Hawkins, especially because you're playing 2 Power 4 non-conference games? How many games reasonably does Hawkins even have a chance of getting into, barring injury? Which, if there is an injury, then you're probably saying so long to that red shirt. But I want to see him get in there. I want to see him in the blue and white go out there and play as a collegiate quarterback. I think that's a big thing toward his development because he's going to sit. We know he's going to sit. But the beautiful thing about college scheduling, I will say this, as much as I detest how Power 4 and Power 5 conference teams have scheduled in the past, and it's getting better. I understand it's getting better. As much as I detest how the traditional scheduling methods have worked, it does work in your favor in terms of getting guys reps against live bullets. So that's what I wanted. I want to see Ty Hawkins get those live bullet reps. The second guy I'm looking at through this vein of what Rhett Lashley said of development for freshmen and working in newcomers is DJ Warner. Now, DJ Warner was a little bit further down the depth chart than I thought he was. So he's listed at that defensive end position behind Cam Robertson, and then there's Ja'Kai Lang or DJ Warner. He's also listed at that bandit position that the one is occupied by Isaiah Smith. He's an or with Akeel Washington. I believe that's going to be Isaiah Smith at the one. I think we all do. And then he's also listed behind them as well. I want to see what DJ Warner shows. To me, this is DJ Warner's audition to getting meaningful rotational snaps this year. If DJ Warner can show not just flashes, but show solidified instances of the get off that we've been talking about over the course of the summer, if he can show instances of that speed, that closing ability, and that ferociousness that he plays with coming out of Phoenix, Arizona, transferring over from Kansas, I think DJ Warner can play himself into some meaningful rotational snaps. And that just goes back to my attitude of view this as a preseason game. Because how many times in the NFL do you see a dude pop and all of a sudden a dude that you didn't think was going to get rotational snaps or hell, maybe even start? Not the case with DJ Warner, by the way. But how many times we see those dudes put something real good on tape and the coaches are like, yeah, we got to give him more than we initially thought we had to. We just got to. And I think that's what possibly could happen here with DJ Warner. Those are the two names I'm looking at. I'm looking at Ty Hawkins and I'm looking at DJ Warner. When I go through that transcript of what Rhett Lashley talked to the media about, those are the two names that come to mind. So I want to see Ty Hawkins running a college offense and being a college quarterback and just get a glimpse of it. It's not going to be against a team that is competing for a Power 4 title or a national title, but I want to see it. I want to see him get some reps in the jersey with the play calls coming through the helmet, him running a huddle, and then playing college football. And then DJ Warner, man, just go out there and be a demon, man. See if you can earn yourself some rotational snaps come conference play. Coming up next, who's going to get more than a rotational share of snaps in the running back room? Because I can tell you this, I don't have a damn clue. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead types keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. So you don't have to wait around things and switch up your life around something that needs to be fixed. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. Back here, wrapping up Locked On SMU on a Wednesday. Thanks for bearing with us as we release the podcast an hour later than usual. That's all right, though. Glad you guys are all here with us today. Okay. The running back room didn't get any more settled when the first depth chart was released. As a matter of fact, it looked even worse than we thought it was going to be. Now, when I say worse, I need to define how I'm using the word worse. I do not mean worse as in, oh, this is going to be a weakness. I said worse in terms of how close we were to getting a definitive answer as to who's going to be RB1. And I like to do these updates on the segments that I do because they build on one another. But quite frankly, ain't nobody really know. Because if you all saw the depth chart, and by the way, shout out to one of our listeners on Twitter tagging me and mentioning last night that they released the depth chart. At running back, it looks like this: Derrick McFall or Chris Johnson Jr. or TJ Hardin or D'Amico Green. Ain't nobody got a clue what's going on at that position. Nobody knows. And maybe nobody is separated, but maybe they just want to try something out in a live game. And I got no problem with that. I really don't. But I'd be lying to you if it told me that it didn't give me some level of anxiety as to why nobody is separated. Now, look, I think ultimately what's going to happen is it will either be Derrick McFall or Chris Johnson Jr. that are going to be the lead tailback. That is my ultimate prediction of what's going to happen, especially once we get to conference play. Maybe the experimental period carries over to Baylor. Maybe they learn enough from one of the dudes to go ahead and say, all right, that's RB1 going into Baylor. But I think this thing will probably linger and not be solidified to us as a fan and or reporter eye until TCU. That's my take. But I do believe it's either going to be McFall or Johnson. I like TJ Hardin as a goal line, short yardage, and a change of pace type of back. That's what I like. And then you work D'Amico Green in there, the true freshman. But there's a lot to like with all the running backs. I think McFall and Johnson have very similar skill sets. Each have some wiggle. Each have some home run capabilities. TJ Hardin, bigger body, also with a little bit of speed as well. And then D'Amico Green has been an exciting freshman. But to me, there's no surprise. There is no surprise that nobody has separated itself. Because quite frankly, I talked about this the other day. You're going to want to see who flows in the offense and also whose running style best complements the blocking scheme and the blocking style of the offensive line. You can try to simulate live action and try to get a grasp of who that could be in practice. But if nobody is really separating himself, by a wide enough serviceable margin, then you kind of have to trickle this into game time. Only doing this against live competition that isn't wearing your same helmet is going to determine that. So there's no surprise here. There's no reason to overreact here. And I know the sidebar on the right side of the screen says running back room looks murky. Remember, the definition of murky is it's not clearly seen. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it just hasn't been crystallized yet. And that's how I'm viewing this running back picture. It just isn't crystallized. It hasn't come together quite yet and revealed itself. But it'll shake itself out. It'll shake itself out after the Baylor game, I think. After the Baylor game, I think we're going to know who the lead dog is going to be. And again, I don't think there's a dude here. I think I said this about a month ago. I don't think there's a dude here who is going to get 250 carries like Brashard Smith got last year. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't even think that's going to be a plan of the coaching staff, barring one or two guys getting hurt. I just don't. But I think SMU is going to be able to roll out a lot of different looks and a lot of different formations and a lot of different styles because you've got 4 really capable, talented running backs. So don't panic. Don't freak out. That's a lot of oars. I know we don't like oars. Believe me, it was the first thing that jumped out when I looked at the depth chart yesterday. I was like, oh, gosh. Oh, boy. But that's how it's going to be. And I think that's fine. As long as we have this thing shaken out, I'd say by the TCU game, and we have at least a handle on how the rotation is going to be divvied up, all things are going to be fine. Those are my opening takeaways from the depth chart. We'll talk more about the depth chart tomorrow, by the way. But thanks for listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making us your first listen on YouTube. My name's Grayson Singleton. For your second listen, go check out Locked On's The Portal with Brian Smith. He's got all the latest information to keep you the most informed fan in college football. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody.